Hi everyone, thank you for attending this session. My name is Pierre-Jean Vardanéga. I'm working at Edge Laboratories, a Swiss company. I'm a software developer there. I hope I won't scratch your ears with my French accent. If I do, I'm sorry. So we are here to talk about configuration management with Spring Cloud. Does anybody familiar with Spring Boot? Yes? Okay, cool. And configuration management with Spring also? Okay. Before I start the demo, I would like just that we agree on a few definitions. First, I sometimes hear developers speaking about properties. For me, it's not configuration, it's just a way to express the configuration. And in fact, I like this quote from Kevin Hoffman from Pivotal, who said that the configuration refers to any value that can vary across deployments. This includes database credentials, connection pool settings, or even API keys to access remote services. That also means that you should avoid to bundle the configuration with your artifact, because your artifact is not supposed to change across the environment, whereas the configuration is supposed to change. And more, if you keep the configuration in the artifact, you will have, each time you change it, you will have to recompile, retest, repackage, redeploy, revalidate, and repush to production. So that's really inconvenient. But there are multiple strategies to manage the configuration, and I like to classify them into three different levels of maturity. The first one is the one that just talked about, when the configuration is inside the artifact. Actually, it's really simple when you start one new application, but quickly it becomes inconvenient. And the first things to do is to put the configuration outside of the artifact. The simplest solution is to use environment variables or even flat files like configuration properties. Actually, some cloud platforms like Cloud Foundry or Heroku uses the environment variables to store the configuration, also to bind the services between each other. And that's a bit more convenient than the first solution, because you don't need to repackage everything. You just need to restart your application once the configuration has been updated. And there is a third level when you have one of multiple services that expose some configuration to other services of your system. This solution is a bit more flexible, but a lot of more flexible, because sometimes those services can push the new changes, the new configuration to the clients that needs this configuration, and the configuration is reloaded at the runtime without restarting the application. So during the demo, I would like to demonstrate every of those three steps, especially the last one. So let's go. So we'll start with a really simple application. It's a shipping service that will provide the shipping cost for any other service, like the billing service. So I'm using Spring Boot, the last version, 1.4.1, with some dependencies, so the web dependencies to provide the shipping cost. Actuator will use it to refresh some configuration, MySQL and JPA, because by the end of this demo, we'll see how to manage the sensitive data, like the database credentials, in a safe way. I will also, if we have enough time, show you how to use Consul to retrieve configuration from its key value store, and the config client, which is the client to the config server that Spring Cloud provides. So let's start. No, I'm not a robot. Okay. So it will be a really simple application. with one HTTP endpoint exposed. And first, so as I said, we will go through the 3 levels of maturity. The first one, which is embedding the configuration. So I'm sure you all did that once. It's really simple. If we start with a simple controller, I will retrieve the configuration from the properties. Sorry. So the endpoints will be called shipping cost, and we'll return a double value get shipping cost. It's very simple. And this value, I want it to be injected by Spring from my properties. So I'm sure that you all did that. And that's the first step. Okay, the shipping cost will be very expensive because I don't want this solution to be put in production. Okay, so I'm starting the application. It will be very fast. Oh yeah, I forgot to. I'm commenting some dependencies for right now because we don't use them. We'll use them after. Okay, let's restart. Okay, it started, and if we go to the endpoint exposed, right here, we have the shipping cost. It's really simple. As you can see, it's also, I'm using actuator to display this endpoint. So the /env displays all the environment, all the variables, all the constant of the environment. And as you can see in here, we have this property source, so our application.properties. It's really simple. Now let's go to the second stage, second level. It's externalizing the configuration. So I created one environment variable on my computer, and by just using it, if I call it, and to show you that it uses the right one, I remove this one. If I restart the application, it should use the environment variable. Right. So it's really simple to externalize the configuration. But now what I would like to do is to be able to restart, to take care of the configuration at the runtime without restarting any application. So for that, I will use Spring Cloud config server. So I will create another Spring Boot application with one dependency, which is config server. Like that. I'm opening it. Okay. So there are only few dependencies, config server and the test, but I'm not using it here. And we have one main class. So to activate the config server, I just had to enable it like that. And I need to set up a few properties. First, I will change the default port in order not to conflict with the client, the shipping service. And then I need to specify the URI where to find the configuration. I'm using Bitbucket right now, so I will fetch the configuration from here. Devox configuration.git, and that should be it. Let's see what happened. So I'm starting the configuration server. Okay, it started. And when I try to check for the configuration, for what is exposed by the server, you can see that it returns me one property source, with a file, which is here. So everything comes from Bitbucket, and it uses the same pattern with Spring and Spring Boot. So if you don't provide any profile to your application, it will use the default profile. So this one. And if you provide a production profile, it will use the production profile because it should override the default profile. As we can see here, the one on top is the production and the one on the bottom is default. So the one that are on top have higher priorities than the one that are at the bottom. Okay, so we have our config server. Now I would like that my client, the shipping service, I would like it to use the configuration server. So few things to do. So here we are okay. Application properties in here. I should set up two properties. The first one is the name of the application. It's a general convention with Spring, even for service discovery or whatever you want. Every service has a name, and this is its identifier to fetch whatever you want on other services. So in here it will be shipping service. As you can see, it's the same name that I use on the file. And then I need to provide the config server URI, which is on localhost 8888. One last thing to do before restarting the application. Those properties are evaluated during the bootstrap of the application in order to create all the bins. In order to do that, I need to rename the application properties into a bootstrap properties. Okay. One thing that I forgot, so I don't want to use the environment variable anymore, so I remove that. And as I said, I want that the properties to be updated at the right time without restarting the application, so I have to set the controller as refreshable by using the @refresh scope. It should be good. Let's restart the application. So as you can see in the log, the client is fetching the configuration server with the default profile. So that's what I wanted. Oops. And here, so we should see the value 9.9 because I'm using the default profile on the client side. And we have 9.9. That's cool, but the properties, the configuration is still not refreshed at the runtime. So we have two solutions with Spring Cloud. Either we use Actuator. There is a /refresh endpoint that refreshes every bins that is annotated with @configuration property or with @refresh scope. So for instance, if I change one value here, I will put 7.9. Okay. So now I refresh the configuration server. So the value has been updated in here, but not there. And to do this, to trigger the refresh, I just call the refresh endpoint on the client side. And it tells me that the properties has been reloaded and up to date, and it's up to date to 7.9. That's a cool feature, but as you saw, I did it manually. You can script it if you want, but there is another way to do it with Spring Cloud, is by using an event bus. So the event bus right now, you can use AMQP and maybe Redis, but I'm not sure that it's released. So if we use AMQP, I have one RabbitMQ that is running on my machine. So it's quite simple. We just need to add one dependency, which is Spring Cloud Starter bus AMQP, just like that. And if I restart the application, I should see that the application is listening. Where I don't know if it has been refreshed, because I don't see the log. Yes. Okay, it's better. Here you see that the application is listening on one queue, which is Spring Cloud Bus. So the client is ready. Now I need to change the config server. It's a bit more complex, but not a lot. So we need the same dependency. That sounds logical. If they want to talk with the same language, but we also need to use one more dependency, which is Spring Cloud Config Monitor. This one will be used by Bitbucket to trigger changes. It's like a webhook, like what you used to do with Jenkins, for instance, to start a build or something like that. I can show you the. Here I set up one webhook. I'm using ngrok. Ngrok is small tools that allow a public IP to hit my computer. Okay, so that's done. Now I will restart this. And so I will change a property on Bitbucket, and it should be refreshed on the client side. So here we can see that it's also connected to the same queue. So if I change once again this property, let's make the shipping cost free. Okay. What can we see? Okay, we can see on the config service that it has been called by Bitbucket to make the change. And on the client side, we can see that we received one message from the config server which says that the shipping cost value has changed. So if I validate that, here it should be 0.0, and that's it. So here the configuration has been refreshed at the runtime. That's really cool because now developers can just push the configuration on a Git repository, and it's automatically pushed on the production. But there is still one problem, because in the configuration we sometimes have sensitive data like database credentials, and it's really a bad practice to put them in a repository. So Spring Cloud provides two solutions to take care of the sensitive data. First, you can use encryption and decryption using GCE. For that you need to set up the host of the application. And there is a second solution which is using Hashicorp Vault. Who knows Hashicorp Vault? Okay, few people. So it's a database that has been created to store sensitive data. Actually, all the data are encrypted in the data store with an encryption key, which is also encrypted and stored in Vault, and it's encrypted with a master key, which is not stored in Hashicorp, in Vault, sorry. And in order to retrieve this master key, instead of duplicating the key on every node and on every shard, Hashicorp decided to use a specific algorithm. You need to unseal a certain number of shards to be able to rebuild the master key. So I already set up my environment for that. I won't demonstrate that to you. You can find multiple blog posts about that. But I would like to use this feature in order to store the credentials. And I would like to use especially another one feature from Vault, which is really, really interesting. It allows you to manage your database credentials. And by that, I mean it can connect to your database. So there are a lot of, they call them secret backends. There are a lot of secret backends for MySQL, Postgres, Cassandra, I think Azure, I'm not sure, AWS, Consul also. And it will generate new credentials. It will renew the credentials when they are revoked, for instance. And that means that no one in your team or in the ops team needs to check to use the credentials. One last thing about Vault: every data that is stored in Vault is attached to a lease, a time to live. That means they will be revoked in the future. And so Spring Cloud with Vault manage the renewal of the credential. So let's see how it works. This is not released yet by the Spring Cloud team. It's still a milestone. So you should take care of how you use it. That's why I need to add the snapshot repository. And also the configuration works like that. No, it's on the client side. It's here, yes. The configuration is this one. So the first one, I set up how I will interact with Vault. So first is the token that allow me to query Vault. The second one is the protocol that I will use to query Vault. And the next three, I won't use this one, is I'm saying that I want to use the MySQL secret backend from Vault that will manage my credentials. And the two last one, if you're familiar with Spring Boot, you should recognize those two properties. I'm just saying to Spring Cloud Vault to, when it retrieves the credential from Vault, to map them into the data source properties so that I don't have to manage anything. So that's why I previously added the JPA and the MySQL dependencies. So in order to demonstrate that, I will just create a small entity, a user, for instance, using JPA. Yes, private, long ID, private string username with the default constructor and the getters and setters. Okay, I need also one repository. So I'm using the default Spring Boot features. Okay, and one endpoint that will expose all my user, for instance. Get mapping users, public variable user, find all, and I will use the repository that I need to inject to retrieve all my users. Like that. Okay. And that seems to be good. Okay. Let's restart. We'll see what happened. Okay. So here you can see it still fetch the client still fetches the configuration server, but also it fetches the Vault configuration. So that means you can use multiple property source in order to fetch the configuration from different sources. I have one issue. Just let me 1 minute. Try to find it. So what's wrong? I might have do a typo somewhere. User repository, create repository, user long entity. Dun, dun, dun. I'll restart the application. I might have been too quick. Oh no. Services. Okay. I can't find the dialect. Yes. Right. I need to put the dialect in the properties. Is it better? Oh no, don't look better. Okay. That means I have no credential anymore. Okay. I recreate the Vault server. It will be easier. Okay, so I will unseal the Vault like I said earlier. So I need 2 keys to do it. And I need a token also. Oops. Token. Like that. Then I need to set up Vault, so I'm just saying that this is my data source, and I don't have the access right. So that means the token is, I cannot use it. Okay. Did I use the right one? What? Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. This one. Thank you. Ah, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I did something wrong. I will pass to the next step. The next step, I wanted to show you how to connect to Consul, the key value data store from Consul. This one is easier. I just need to include the Spring Consul config. I also need to deactivate the bus AMQP configuration because it doesn't work, or maybe I did something wrong, but it seems that it's still fresh as it's not released yet. So if I restart the application, okay, I wanted to retrieve one property from Consul, so I will do a small controller. Add value, I want to retrieve something that is called VAT, private double VAT, at get mapping. get VAT, return VAT, and I need to enable it. Discovery client, it's a bit strange, but I'm not using the discovery feature from Spring Cloud. And the database, once again, as I cannot connect to it. And this one. Let me show you Consul quickly. So it's a discovery, a service discovery tool, but it has also a key value store. And I already set one value, which is VAT. Still have something. Yes. I need to remove all of that. Oh, no, not this one. You can use them, all the three properties at the same times. As I said earlier, there are priorities between them. So, yes, and here I retrieve the value from Consul. So, if I show you there, we have Vault, Consul, and not the config server because it is not it is deactivated. I'm sorry. That's it. I'm sorry for the issue that I had, but I assure you that it works. Thank you for attending this session.